Okay, so thank you for being with us today in the second day of the Latin American chapters workshops. My name is Israel Rojas. I am the Development General Manager of Internet Society. I collaborate in several projects, such as the Community Networks project that we will be discussing in this first session of today. And before I move on, I do want to take a moment to remind you that yesterday we had some interesting sessions. Really, we opened the workshop. We had a session about the strategic vision of Internet Society, led by Christina Flaherty, our Vice President for the Latin American and the Caribbean region. Then we had an interesting session about the Internet way of networking, where Diego Canavarro, our Senior Manager of Public Policies for the region, along with Paula Real, conducted an analysis of a case study that was practical work. And you can actually check this out in SoundCloud. We have sound bites of about 5 minutes that contain the main points of yesterday's sessions. You can find the link there. In Twitter, we are ISOC_LAC. And then you can find us in our website too. All that information is great, and you can relive what we were doing yesterday. So without further ado, then I do want to take just a moment to start with the community network sessions, because we know that around half of the population in the world does not have internet access, and that represents thousands of millions of people, and it is a challenge. It is a huge challenge for us to connect these people, so we need to become creative to find complementary solutions to offer connectivity solutions to more and more people every day, because our mission is to have internet for everyone. So because of that, it is a pleasure for me to have so many experts on the matter. First, I want to start with my friend and my colleague, Juan Peirano. He is one of the Community Networks project leaders here in the organization in Internet Society. So I think we can start with a general overview of the project by Juan Peirano, and then I will be introducing you several people that have done outstanding work in the region working with community networks. So Juan, you have the floor. Hi, thank you, Ira. I hope everyone can hear me properly. And I'm going to be sharing my screen with all of you so I can very briefly and quickly present what it is that we do at the Internet Society level with community networks. And also, I want to tell you a bit about how we work in the organization with the project too. I'm sorry. Give me just a second. Great. So as you know, community networks belong to one of the 8 key projects that we have in the organization. Community networks is a part of the grow area of ISOC. We want to grow the internet along with the development of infrastructure and community as well. We also have a regional and global approach to our work. So the project is a global project. Many times I co-lead the project along with Max Tukey, but we also have regional experts in every single region that we are present in. So we globally coordinate the project, but we act at a regional and local level. And as Isra was saying, community networks and what we are trying to promote in internet society are complementary access solutions. And why we call this complementary access is because we understand that traditional connectivity solutions do not reach because of several reasons, several areas, geographical areas, or socioeconomical areas of cities. And we believe that community networks are a solution that can provide access to those people for the internet. And as you know, we have the technical aspect, which is networks, and the social aspect, which is the communities. So half of the work that we do has to do with working with communities, because communities are key ingredients of how we carry out the project, how we develop it, and then how we sustain it in time. And in those communities, we have people, or sometimes groups of peoples, that are stakeholders, and we like calling them local champions. And you will see actually that when we do interventions at a global level in several countries where we are working in English specifically, we call them local champions. And those people are really vital and fundamental in the development, not just of the technical aspects of the projects, but also in the idea of community building, in showing the relevance of the community network. Because in an internet society, of course, for us, it implies an improvement in the quality of life of people by providing internet connectivity. And it is also important that we see that many times people or groups of people who are local champions in community networks are not necessarily technicians or professionals. We have examples actually of people who are lawyers, people who come from social backgrounds, and basically the only thing that they've done is they've set up the router in their own homes, but they have this energy and this vivacity and this need to provide something for the community where they're living in, or to a community nearby that they are interested in. And they become this engine or this heart of their communities. And that is what is helpful in setting this spark, then turns this small community network into a wildfire supporting the entire community. And as you can see here in the picture, this is actually a young 17-year-old boy. Well, he was 16 when he got started with the project. He wanted to provide optical fiber to his community in a small town called Susamir, and he actually was a local champion. And over there, you can also see several local champions in a meeting that we had in 2016 in another place. Now, from the operational point of view, ISOC has four basic pillars to carry out the project. We have the engagement aspect, which we believe is really important. We need to engage with communities. And at the same time, engagement implies having policies, because we do need to create an environment that favors the creation of community networks, and that implies engaging with regulators, ministers, local political leaders, and local and regional political leaders. At the same time, we understand that it is necessary to work on capacity building, because we know that communities need capacities in order to carry out the projects. Deployment is also important, because deployment is the end result of the work of many years, where we are first engaging, we're changing policies, we're changing the environment in the place, then we work on capacity building, and then lastly we deploy. We also have pillars of community networks. I won't go into detail here, because I know that people that are coming after me in this session will probably explain this more clearly. But it is, though, important that we focus on public policies and internet connectivity, because community networks need to have internet connection to really provide an improvement for the way in which people live. We need to need to have know-how. We need to be centered in users, and then we want to have projects that are sustainable, projects that exist in the long term. Now, about challenges and opportunities, which again I won't go into detail, but I will mention, though, they have to do with how we get close to the community. They have to do with training, public policies, getting licenses for the spectrum, and funding, like universal funds for the development of complementary access solutions, having access to backhaul, having cash flow, sustainability as well. These are all challenges, but at the same time, they're opportunities. And I would say that that's it for me. And I hope that I kept my speech under 10 minutes. Yes, you did. That was perfect. As I was telling you, Juan is one of the leaders for this project in Internet Society. We actually work hand in hand internally, at least. But as Juan was saying, we know that if local experts don't exist, these projects would not be able to take place, which is why it's a pleasure to have Álvaro Gálvez from our Guatemala chapter. Actually, Álvaro was able to work and collaborate with a really interesting project that he will be telling us about. And we also have the mayor of the Sicapate municipality, Walter Nájera. So, Álvaro, Walter, can you tell us about this project that you're setting up in Guatemala? I remember that last year we were there and we were talking face to face when we could do that, actually. So, Álvaro, can you take it up, please? Yes, thank you. Can I share my screen? Yeah. First, I want to say good morning, everyone, and thank you to Walter Nájera for being with us today in such an important event for the members of Internet Society. What Juan was saying about community networks really is is the guidelines, if you will, that we all have in our chapters and that we are all working on in order to create and build community networks. And last year, specifically, we were able to participate in a big event supported by ISOC. And we discussed several topics and issues. In the Guatemala chapter, decided to become involved even more than it was with the community. And because we had several activities for 2020, we said, okay, we had 8 projects, but one of the main projects that we had was the community networks project, because it was clear for us that without bearing in mind that we would be affected by a pandemic, because we didn't know that, we did wanted to help develop and help communities. So our goals that we had defined along with all the other chapters had to do with carrying out the work that we have been doing every single year to create community networks in order to guarantee that by 2025 community networks are implemented in at least 50 countries to improve the social and economic conditions of the people who are connecting. And of course, we were mostly focusing on the deployment, capacity building, creating a positive environment, and impact assessment too. And specifically, what we've been doing in our chapter throughout this year, we've tried to engage with communities. We've tried to get close to different organizations and have work agreements through memorandums of understanding, and to have a better activity supporting the chapter. And based on those activities that we were carrying out of engagement, we then started our work with the National Secretariat of Science and Technology, and we became part of two sector work commission. One is the Commission of Information Technologies, and the other is the Education Commission. And based on the participation and all the work that our members were doing with community networks, with governance and education, which are work groups that are very well focused and that we are really working on and that are working towards the same goal, we were able to identify several municipalities, one of them being the Sibacate municipality, which is the youngest municipality in Guatemala. We also realized, as Israel said, because he was there with Diego and Christian, we were able to see in San Pedro de Laguna and San Pablo de Laguna, both in Sololá, that needed community networks. And we are trying to work on those regions. and really improve community networks there. But after those alliances, it was that we actually got close to the Zipacate municipality, and our education commission got close to that municipality. They talked to the mayor of the municipality, and we started talking about education and what it was like in Zipacate to access education. And what we saw was that the municipality had created an infrastructure that attempted to connect schools through optical fiber to the internet. Nevertheless, in the region, really, that was really expensive. So they needed internet connection to actually access those education opportunities. So we started managing the project. We got into the first stage. So we got funding in order to carry out research. We assessed the situation and really survey what it was that we needed to do. And then, because of the pandemic, we also started focusing on three axes for the work that we would be doing. First, we wanted to be able to provide internet for the entire population in order to benefit education that was sorely affected in our country this year. And I would say that everywhere that was the same, but there were education issues here in our country specifically. And I think that the pandemic came to show how much we were lacking in the need to have a properly established internet structure to provide education for everyone, regardless of whether or not they were going to school. And in the case of Sibacate is very much exposed to the different issues with weather. So we wanted to be able to have an app supporting the municipality and the community to have warning systems in the case that we had natural disasters there, in order to provide proper information. So if there was the possibility that a natural disaster would strike in that place, people would be informed of it prior to the disaster through the app. So what we were trying to do with that notification system was to have the least possible number of casualties if the event struck. So those were some of the things that we were assessing. And then something else that we wanted to do was to strengthen the education community, and we wanted to create work opportunities in the municipality as well. And we talked to the mayor, and we realized that he had this beautiful work plan. So things were looking up for us. So now let me show you a bit of a video to explain a bit more about the place that we're working on. This is the Zipacate municipality.
Olvidarme yo de mi tierra, lugar de fe y cosas muy bellas, lugar que me dio el primer respiro, en aquel pueblito me dio nacer, y aunque cosas que me la envenenan, mi tierra correrá por mis venas, por el resto de mis días quiero gritarle al mundo que no se olvida de dónde se viene, es como un viento, es tierra que te vio crecer, no se olvida de dónde se viene, se lleva en el alma, se defiende a capa y espada. Una tristeza me hace llorar, un sentimiento me hace pensar, porque mi pueblo sufre de hambre, tanta pobreza y desigualdad. Si al final todos somos iguales, mira el sol para todos sale, nadie tiene una garantía de vivir siempre y ser inmortal. Vive la vida de paso en paso, lleva en el alma donde naciste, tu patria es una y como ninguna, grítale al mundo que no se olvida de dónde se viene. Es como un viento, es tierra que te vio crecer, no se olvida de dónde se viene, se lleva en el alma, se defiende a capa y espada. Pues en esta área ha sido un arduo trabajo que ha
In this area, we've, well, not we, but Guatemala Mayor has been carrying out hard work, really. So now I will give him the floor so that he can tell us about how he has supported us and what he expects out of our project. So, Mr. Mayor, now you have the floor so you can share your point of view and what you expect out of the community network in the Sipagate municipality. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. He is on mute, so we can't hear him. Can y'all hear me now? Yes. Hi, good morning, everyone, to all of you here in this webinar. It is a joy to me to be here, joining you all the way from the Sipagate municipality. I'm really happy and I am really thankful. I thank God for seeing that we get the support from all of you. And I will briefly go through the story, the history of the Sipagate municipality. We were a village, actually. We belonged to another municipality, and in 2015, we started the emancipation of our municipality. So we started that in the year 2000, and it took us 15 years of struggle to actually become our own municipality. Actually, it was in October 2015 at 1:33 p.m. Our municipality was decreed a municipality of its own. After that, the history of the Sipagate municipality was born. This village that turned into a municipality, and I was voted as first mayor on May the 30th, 2016. So I am the first mayor of this municipality. We are the 339 municipality of the country, and we are the 14th municipality of the Squinkla department. We are rather small. We are next to the Pacific Ocean. We have beautiful beaches, as you could see in the video. We have a national park and a beautiful ecosystem. And Zipacate, I think, is characterized by having one of the most beautiful beaches in our country. We do surfing championships. We have wonderful cooking of shellfish here. And for me, it was a challenge to create and grow the municipality. And the slogan is we're working together to build the municipality. And step by step, we've been building and developing our municipality. We now have a municipal palace next to a park. We are working on repairing the buildings of all the schools of the municipality because actually, when I became mayor, I started knowing more about the municipality. I started going through the schools. I saw that the conditions, the building conditions were poor. The ceilings were torn apart. The schools were fully destroyed. Our children actually had to be sitting in bits of plastics because they really didn't have chairs. Children who had to buy their own desks because they didn't have desks in school. And unfortunately, I think our country is always has always been frowned upon because of the corruption of politicians. I think that that's a kind of a karma that we are carrying. And I know it's not just Guatemala. I know that this is something that happens with Latin America. And unfortunately, in those years, Zipacate was really hit by politicians who were careless and who were doing things for themselves and not for the community. But when I got there, we started building schools, we changed the roofing, we started painting them. I bought desks for all the schools. We provided furniture for the schools. And nowadays, I can pleasantly say that all the headmasters and mistresses in their schools have desks in store just in case. children don't need to actually bring their own desks and chair from their own homes. They have uh, they have dignified places where they can learn. And then after that, we started creating computer labs in our schools. Um, and I feel that that was necessary because I know that education is what it helps societies develop. Uh, it makes us be less blindfolded to reality, and it also enables us to choose our authorities wisely in order for them to work to our benefit. So in schools, then after working on the buildings, we started creating computer labs too. And after a year or a year and a half, we had computer labs in every single school. So all of our schools now have computers and computer labs. We have approximately 300 computers. That would be the inventory of schools that we have in computers that we have in our schools. Sorry. We also have a computer technician who actually teaches our children about computing. And I think we've started really transforming the municipality, and God willing, with the help of the Ministry of Education and FUNCEPA, an ONG in our country, told us that they want to start the school year in the Zipacate municipality, and they want to turn the municipality into the first digital municipality of the Squinkla department. Why? Because we have computer labs in schools and we have computers for children. But I think that one thing that the Ministry of Education, because they're in charge of education in the country, should do is to provide, of course, economic funding. But of course, we have issues that have been haunting us for many, many years, and that has left us with a lot of work as local governments. And what we've realized is that the development of the municipality needs to go hand in hand with internet and the development of the digital life of our users. So now we have optical fiber in our municipality. We also have a security system. We have over 165 cameras throughout the municipality as well. We have our own optical fiber in the municipal palace. We have a virtual library. We are also trying to plan more education projects as well. And as a matter of fact, we just placed the cornerstone for the first shelter school. And what do I mean by shelter school? Is that, as Álvaro was saying, we are by the Pacific Ocean. We are located there. And as a matter of fact, because of that, we are very much hard hit by natural events. Sometimes it is about atmospheric pressure, storms. We also have floods in certain areas of the municipality throughout the years. So we decided that we needed to plan and build, and of course design, and then start implementing. And this is something that we've actually started working on already, on having this first shelter school in the nation. Because what happens is that in our country, when we have natural catastrophes, schools are used as temporary shelter places. So if there is a school available in the emergency area, are used as shelters. But really, schools are not built or designed in order to provide shelter for people. They are designed for the education of our children. We have rooms, classrooms, and they're not made for that. So we started creating this first school that is designed to turn into a shelter in the event of natural catastrophes. So that space will allow us to educate our children. It will be a dignified space to provide education. And if it were to happen, if we have natural catastrophes, we can have a temporary shelter for the people in our countries. So we are very much focused on that. We are focused on having this building, but this is of course very costly. And approximately, we will be investing. Wait a second, I'm doing the math. Over $1,700,000 in this school. So we're going to be using over $1,700,000 to build this school. It will be well equipped. We will have about 70 computers in that school too. We're also going to be placing screens there. We're not going to be using regular whiteboards. We will have digital boards in every classroom too. So we are deeply invested in education because I think that that's the way to provide a better living condition for our community. So I do want to thank you for helping us in this process and helping us develop the municipality, because working with internet society helps us provide internet to our communities, to our schools specifically, strengthen the education of the Sipacate municipality, the education of our people, and also working on training our teachers. We actually hired 3 teachers to provide English lessons to our children too, and we wanted to create a technological education platform focused on this new improvement, because what we want to do is improve the life of our community. And I think that we are the a municipality that really is in good conditions to grow, and maybe we might be a space where we can provide new workforce opportunities. So maybe our youth will come in and work with us as developers. Maybe we might have call centers here, so we might provide new job opportunities for the people in our country and try to make the most out of the education that we can provide our community. Another thing that our population does is grow sugarcane. They also have plantain harvesting, and a lot of the people in our municipality work there. But then we have a lot of young people who have graduated in our municipality, but because they don't have work offer in the market, and because the work market is saturated, as a matter of fact, especially in the education system. As a matter of fact, it has been 8 years since no teachers have been hired by the Ministry of Education. So imagine what it's like. In the past 8 years, we had so many teachers who have graduated but have found no jobs. So we need to find a way around this. And I think technology is the most important tool that we can make the use of. And I don't think it has been exploited, at least at the work level, if you will, because I think that the perspective that many young people have is just to go to high school, possibly get a computing certificate, just to know how to work the basics of a word processor, maybe, and then they put their computers aside. And they graduated as teachers, or they graduated as CPAs, and they say, okay, I have to work doing this. But then they don't find a job. And what I've noticed is that technology provides a very broad work market. So I think that with your help, with the things that we've implemented, with the vision that we have, we will be able to create a space and to exploit a space that will provide work opportunities for the community. And we can make use of the funding that we have and the funding that you guys have shared with us, because we will become stronger as a municipality because of this process. And the help that we are getting will probably help us in the next 4, 5, 6 years to have a technological workforce that is at the service of our community, and that at the same time will help us as members of families and communities to develop and grow. Uh, yes, absolutely. And that's because, I mean, there's one thing that we believe in the internet society, is that internet is a force that transforms the lives of peoples and communities. And because of that, it is a joy for us to hear of you. And we will probably stay in touch with you in the next few months to continue working hand in hand with you. So now, after Guatemala, we head straight to Colombia. So thank you, Álvaro and Walter, for providing this very thorough commentary on your experience. And now we move to Germán Fajardo, who is participating from the Colombia chapter, and he is supporting and creating a community networks project, apart from many other things that he is doing. Hi, thank you, Israel. And thank you, Internet Society, for inviting me to participate here today. So, I'm going to be sharing a very brief presentation about the externalities and the challenges to deploy community networks, and I will focus on the Colombian case. And it will probably apply to many cases in our region, of course, because we do share similar characteristics. As you can see here in the first slide, this might sound a bit ironic, but I think it is the best way for me to show you what are the opportunities, the existing opportunities nowadays, not just in Colombia, but at a regional level, to deploy community networks. In the Colombian case, over 40% of the population is not connected. That statistic has been recognized by the Colombian government. It is a grave, grave issue that we have in the country. Apart from that, we have the fact that Colombia is a rural country. Over 20% of the population lives in rural areas. And the issue with that is that, and this is of course something that has been the issue of discussion and topic of discussion and debate for many debates, is that because of the pandemic we were able to identify another factor, and that is that 92% of public education organizations of the country do not have access to internet. And that of course creates many opportunities for us to tackle the issue. Then also the evolution of the ecosystem of community networks in Colombia has been very slow. The experience perhaps go back to about 10 years ago. And what we will talk about is how these experiences have been changing and how this evolution has been taking place. But we do have something positive to share, and it's that we have started consolidating an environment that enables the development of these kinds of connectivity solutions. As a matter of fact, the national government created a Telecommunications Act in 2019 and different programs and then government policies in favor of consolidating that environment. But why are these chaotic uh, scenarios an opportunity? Well, because they create an opportunity for us to implement these community networks as connectivity solutions in those places where we have problems, where there is no connectivity, where no other operator has provided service before, where the communities that are being displaced either because of violence or security issues, or those populations which have been traditionally, if you will, abandoned by governments who were in office at the time, await for those solutions. They are waiting for us, and they are presenting an opportunity for us as well. And as I was telling you, the development of community networks in Colombia has been very slow. And that is no mystery or secret. And the main barriers and obstacles that have prevented the development of these kinds of solutions could basically be summarized like this. One, the capillarity of infrastructure. The network infrastructure, or if you will, the backbone of the country, is not capillary enough to cover the entirety of the municipalities of the country. So, because we don't have sufficient capillarity, the operators who are supposed to provide telecommunication services and provide connectivity solutions to those communities will not do that, just because it makes no sense from a business perspective. Other issues that we find are administrative and regulation issues, because in order for an operator to acquire a permit to provide telecommunication services in Colombia, they need to set up several transactions, they need to get a general authorization, and then they also need to pay certain fees to the Ministry of Technology and Information Technology too. So what happens is that this is all designed for commercial telecommunications providers, and these regulations are not really designed with a perspective of community networks in mind. So we find a gap here in the regulatory environment that creates a barrier and obstacle for a community to get a general authorization to provide services or to provide complementary telecommunication activities to satisfy their own needs without meeting those regulations. And unfortunately, getting these authorizations and getting these registries generally imply or are designed in a way that communities, in the event that they choose to actually go through the process, would need so much funding to meet all the requirements of the government to have their community networks. And because of that, this is a worst case scenario because they won't be able to do it. Then we also have additional regulation requirements, such as the payment of fees to the regulator, the payment of information reports every 3 months to the auditing authorities. Then they need to set up several guarantees for the service provision, and that basically becomes an insurmountable obstacle for the community networks. Then, of course, resources are scarce, and that's, I think, one of the main bottlenecks that community networks come across. It is not just that we don't have resources, but it it's the fact that a community, organized or unorganized, um, will get resources such as the spectrum, imagine, or even numbering resources is it's almost impossible, because the conditions established in the law and by the national agency in Colombia indicate or provide that in order to access the spectrum, in order to develop and deploy a community network, must meet several requirements. First, they need to carry out an objective selection process with certain procedures that are designed nowadays by the government from the perspective, or at least for traditional operators. So, in the history of Colombia, no objective selection processes have been designed with community networks in mind. I mean, obviously, similar activities have been carried out, such as objective selection processes for radio communications services in communities, but those are very different topics. Because even if the radio communication services in communities are services that have social functions, of course, they cannot be equated or they cannot be compared to the solution provided by community network as the one that we are thinking about. Then another issue has to do with processing times to implement a network and deploy a network. Um, they are an issue and an obstacle because their networks are community networks are lacking in resources. They don't have qualified people to carry the network out. There's a lack of interest in the project a lot of the times. And then lastly, there are two additional aspects to consider. One is that the rules are not equitable when it comes to accessing resources through the FONTIC, which is the single funding institute in Colombia. Because if you want to access those resources and those fundings, you need to have certain characteristics, and organized communities do not have the financial muscle, the capacity, or the experience to meet those requires established by the government to access those resources. And then another shortcoming is that many local authorities, be them um, municipal councils or committees, require additional provisions for anyone who wants to set up a community network, even for the community creating a private network. So, all of these obstacles, along with other ones too that I haven't mentioned, make it so that the development of community networks, as you can see here in the little turtle, um, are very, very hindering of the development of the networks. Nevertheless, these obstacles have not actually prevented the development and the evolution of the ecosystem of community networks, because community networks are the appropriate stage for people to develop and grow as part of members of a digital economy. And here we have a list of examples of organizations and companies that in the last 10 years have implemented community networks. Some of them are bigger than others. Some of them are foundations. Some of them are not even foundations. They're just organizations made up of people from communities that want to develop projects. And then we have others such as universities that support these kinds of initiatives, organizations such as Colnono, which is an ONG that is working in several aspects throughout the country. And one of those additional stakeholders that are part of the ecosystem of community networks is the Colombia chapter of Internet Society. The Colombia chapter was founded actually 2 years ago,